Hi everyone, Alexandra Jarrett, Jupiter returns here with your weekly astrology forecast for the week of the 31st of August through to the 6th of September 2020. Hope this finds you all well and anticipating another installment of astrology. I do hope these weekly forecasts are useful to you, and if they are, please remember to subscribe to the channel, give it a like. It really helps spread the word. So welcome back if you're one of the growing number of regulars that I have, and welcome if it's your first time too. Let's get straight in. So another busy week of astrology. Starting with today, Monday the 31st, then we have the moon. The moon at this point in her cycle, she's very much waxing. She's coming towards the opposition point with the sun, which is obviously the full moon that we'll have, which I'll come on to talk about. Today she's in the sign of Aquarius. So at this point in her cycle, she's very, very powerful. There's a lot of strong moon energy around today. So watch where it is that you're being drawn. In the sign of Aquarius, this is often humanitarian causes. It's the tribe, it's the collective, it's who are we being brought together with, who are we being drawn to collaborate with, and how are our emotions being drawn in terms of being a member of the collective, being a member of the community, and what we contribute into that, as well as what we take from that, the two-way process. So watching for clues, essentially, as we move into the Pisces full moon. This idea of watching for clues essentially really is where astrology, the power of astrology, can help you on your journey. And kind of the summary of the whole week, the synthesis of the energies that I see can be summarized as, self-awareness being the key to our liberation. That's how I'm summing up the whole week, because this is we're all trying to grow. If you're watching this, you're being called on a path of personal spiritual growth, and absolutely that has to be facilitated by self-awareness. And the full moons are times when we have these very profound moments of revelation. It's revealing, it's a spotlight that gets cast on something within us, usually through an interaction with another person, that just facilitates that process. And it's a lifelong process, it's a long journey. It's not something, self-awareness is not something that it's not a one-off event that just happens. It's like peeling off the layers of an onion. All the time we're stripping back aspects of conditioning that have been placed around us. And I do believe that this week in particular will be one of those key moments, one of those layers that kind of gets pulled back if we're aligning with the influences that are present. And it's really all about the authenticity of the self. Who am I really underneath all these layers that have been put on around the surface? So stripping that back to see what the truth is that lay underneath all of that. So the last aspect that the moon makes whilst she's in a sign is kind of quite an important thing in astrology, particularly when we're going to have a lunation take place near the beginning of the following sign, as we will be with Pisces. So the last aspect that the moon is going to make as she journeys through the sign of Aquarius is that she's going to make a trine aspect down to the North Node, okay? The lunar North Node, this point of destiny. That therefore means that there'll be a sextile to the South Node automatically, because these 2 points are always in opposition with each other. So we always get this equilateral triangle that gets created. And that's really important. The fact that this is the last aspect that the moon is going to make before she ingresses the sign of Pisces and starts moving into her fullness. That's very telling then that this is fated There's a destined feeling, and that I'm seeing this massively throughout the whole week, as you'll see as we go through each day. It's a real point in time in terms of our own personal self-development. Where we're headed, you know, is an easy flow of energy here. This is tapping us into our North Star, where we're going in life, and asking us just if we can make a little bit of effort pulling through some of what is our natural innate talent that we've come into this life with, perhaps something that we've perfected in a prior incarnation. If we can just tap into those resources, you know, and pull those into how we can build them into the future. This is just really going to help the whole process of this week's astrology. So then moving into Tuesday then, the key aspect as we move into Tuesday is that there will be, we've got an exact trine this time from Mercury, who's down here in the sign of Virgo, Earth sign of Virgo, where the sun is right now too. And this is over to Pluto down there in retrograde motion, pulling everything back, pulling us to re-go over old ground that Pluto has traveled in this other Earth sign, Capricorn. Now, those that follow astrology and have been doing for some time will know how important Pluto has been in the astrology of 2020. This is really pulling us into understanding that the process we are going through right now is the deepest, most intense, profound moment of change. Absolute, complete annihilation of the old in order to rebirth something better. Now, in some way or another, consciously or unconsciously, everybody is feeling this energy, some more than others. And how we are interpreting that energy, how it's influencing us is very, very personal. But I'm seeing a lot of polarity at the moment. There are those who are seeing, you know, the need for some kind of destruction, and those that are seeing the opportunity within that process of destruction to occupy the space that it's going to vacate with something better. So with the combination of Pluto and Jupiter here, been very, very present throughout 2020. This is where we're getting these ideas, the beliefs. Okay, Jupiter is the beliefs, and Pluto is, you know, wanting to see what lay behind those ideas. So it's sensing that there's something wrong, that there's something perhaps shadowy, secretive, manipulative, untoward, essentially. It's just saying, you know, there's an abuse that's within the current system, Capricorn. And this is being exposed. You know, that these collection of energies are exposing and purging up to the surface where the current way of doing things doesn't work. All right, it's being massively stress tested and saying, look, this doesn't work. This part of our system, this part of our structure doesn't work. All right, and there's this real huge push right now to bring about change, to encompass this and embody this and say, okay, enough of doing things this way. It doesn't work. The connection with Mercury down here to Virgo then is saying, okay, I get that. I'm on board with that idea. This doesn't work. So we need to bring about change. How's that going to look? All right, this really is the devil. Pluto is in the detail, right? Mercury likes to work things out. Mercury wants to analyze everything and make very kind of rational, very objective sense of things. And right now, there's not a huge amount of objectivity going on out there. Everything is very emotive at this point in time. Everything is very kind of feelings led, and I just know, you know, Jupiter is this sense of I know, I know the best, I know the truth, and only I know. And if you don't see it my way, you're therefore unawakened, you know, you don't know the truth. And we're seeing a lot of this, unfortunately, taking place as well. So the Mercury and Sun connection, particularly on this day, the Mercury connection is saying, okay, you want change. Tell me how that's going to look. What are the step-by-step instructions of how that can play out? Or, yes, this system is not really working as it should. Tell me then how it should, right? What's the details? What's the instructions? What does it look like? You can't just stop with, this doesn't work. That's just a problem. It's really easy to see the problem. The solution that is where we need to be focusing right now with the Sun moving through Virgo. This is like saying, okay, all right, so what do we do about that? How can we make that better? Virgo wants to improve. It's the sign of self-improvement, of home improvement, of healing, wants to make things better. So let's not just stop with everything's bad, everything's awful, everything's broken, this doesn't work, this is unfair, you know, this shouldn't be like this. Let's say, okay, fine, we've established that, and now what do we do about it, right? This is where we need to be focusing now. We all know, I think by now, that there are problems that humanity as a collective is facing, and we each individually play our part in being a part of the solution or not. So that's really, really powerful energy that's around on Tuesday as we start to really get some understanding and insight into what the practical applications of change and the process of transformation need to be. And of course, that's showing up in your personal life as well. You know, this is a call for us to individually transform our own worlds and our own behaviors and the structure of our own lives, so that that can then be reflected out into the collective. So this is giving us some detail, or asking us to come up with some detail around how our own personal change needs to look. You know, what are the processes that I now need to go through in order to create the transformation that I know I'm being called to make? So moving into Wednesday then, and this is the point where the moon now moves to 10 degrees of Pisces. The 10-degree mark is where we'll have the full moon, okay? Around about 7 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday here in the UK. So this is the Sun at 10 degrees Virgo, Moon at 10 degrees of Pisces. It's an opposition, as it is every time. That's what creates a full moon. And this opposition, therefore, often shows up with information being reflected back to us through an experience and interaction with the outside world. So this is often through a conversation or an interaction with another person. We can suddenly have a flash of insight. It's the balancing point of these two polar opposite energies. Pisces being the very spiritual realm, the kind of the above the humanness. So this is the ideal, okay? This is everyone is operating on the level of namaste. You know, the higher self in me recognizes the higher self in you. But what the Sun in Virgo is doing is it's reminding us, giving us a reality check. It's bringing this loftiness of Pisces back down to earth and saying, unfortunately though, 90% of the population are just not on that path. They're not on that same path. So we have to facilitate the Piscean influence into, you know, the reality as it is now. You know, there is, you know, there's subjective views on what reality actually is, but for the purposes of this context, what I mean is the general consensus of the collective. You know, that 90% of human life is subscribed to the idea of this one way. And that is what I mean when I talk about reality. You know, it's trying to balance the higher self with the very humanness, the fact that this incredible consciousness and spirit for this part of its journey is trapped in a human body, and it is gravitationally pulled to this earth. You know, that is where we find ourselves, like it or not. And quite often Pisces energy doesn't like it because it's in opposition to an earth sign. It's like, I don't like reality. I don't want to be part of this consensus reality. And therefore it leads to escapism. You know, we often find the escapism of Neptune Pisces energy often through spirituality in actual fact, but also through the Neptunian influence of addictions, substance addictions, particularly alcohol and drugs, that allow us to kind of just take a breather from, you know, the real world, as it were. So the exciting part of this full moon, we want to be looking out for these messages about where we need to create this balance in our life between the ideal and the real. And this is beautiful. This is what I'm super excited about this week, is that this full moon creates an exact sextile aspect to Uranus. Uranus is all about authenticity and freedom, liberation. So this is saying, it's obviously therefore got a simultaneous trine to the sun. The sun being the core essence of the self. This is saying, you know, what is actually true about me, you know, the core essence of who I really am, is flowing through from the connection to, from the sun and Uranus, and being highlighted through this full moon. And it's bringing us back to that point of realization. It's one of those layers of the onion that I talked about being stripped away, as I can really see what the truth is of me. When I understand this side of myself that is struggling to cope with the realities that are present within the 3D consensus reality. You know, we all have these problems, whether it be the survival needs of, you know, I have to work to keep a roof over my head, to buy food, these kinds of things, or whether it just be a case of, you know, bigger ideals of you know, the collective and where we're moving as a species, you know, and everything that exists in between. So, and the influence that has on us, this is another thing, because Pisces is very unboundaried. There's a very easy flow between it and the other, all right? It's what connects us all as a spiritual whole, but therefore that makes it very kind of easy to be diluted, essentially. So the sense of self can be easily lost with Pisces. The boundaries to the idea of self are very open, as water and influence from other people washes in. So what we want to be looking out for here is, where have I been influenced by an idea about myself that isn't actually true? And we have embodied, Virgo, we've embodied some of these ideas to such an extent that they've become part of our personality. A lot of the work that we're doing right now with Mars work is all about sort of refining the process of who it is that I actually am. And this will be a big part of that, of understanding what has influenced me, what have I allowed to influence me, and what's the truth about that? Where can I peel off that layer that actually isn't true and authentic? So we're coming back to the core of the self. It's really, really beautiful. At the same time, there's a lot going on Wednesday, huge amount of astrology taking place. We've got an opposition from Venus down here to Saturn. if I just move this out of the way for the moment so we can just focus on this one aspect. So what's happening here is that we have the opposition from Saturn to Venus is building into an aspect that we call a T-square, all right? So what this is where these two planets that are opposing each other make a stressful connection to a third, all right? In this case, it's Mars. So this is where we're pulling in that Mars work of, you know, the self, I, who am I? And a Mars retrograde is really asking you to work that out, all right? Every 2 years we dip into a Mars retrograde and it's saying, you know, how have I been showing up in life? Who am I? Is this who I want to be going forward? And if not, making those internal changes. And this will be a key moment in that process. What we have is two personal planets here, Venus and Mars, you know, close neighbors to the Earth. So we feel their influence that much more. And they're called the personal planets because these are kind of the filters of our personality. These are the aspects that make up who we are. Venus is what we value, what we love, what we desire, how we show that love, creativity, connection with others, relationships. And Mars is our fire. It's what makes us do things. It's our soldier that we send out into the world and say, make this happen. So it's our passion, it's our assertion, it's our drive and our juice and our mojo, right? So this is where we go out into the world and we're active, all right? So I've got masculine and feminine energies playing out here. And these are two really important parts of who we are as people. When we have the Saturn influence here, Saturn really is saying, particularly in this retrograde motion, is saying there needs to be a change somehow in terms of how these two planets are showing up in terms of my personal structure, the structure of who I am and what my life looks like, all right? And it's asking us to take ownership. It's asking us to have a sense of responsibility for these two aspects of our personality. And there will be quite a profound conflict here between the feeling nature, the love nature, the need for connection, the need for balance and harmony and beauty in our lives, and the Saturn restrictions on that. What's impeding love? What's impeding connection? What's impeding balance? This is what's showing up, and that's saying taking responsibility for that. You know, this isn't about anyone else. This is not about being a victim, which is one of the downsides of how Piscean energy can turn up. It can be a victim. It can make a victim of us. This is not about being a victim of these things. It's about saying, take ownership of it. Take ownership of where you've been influenced by things, where you've been conditioned throughout your life's experiences, and how that's showing up in how you love, how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, taking responsibility for that. Responsibility for how you give, all right? Venus in Cancer is super caring. These are people who just give so much of themselves. And sometimes that's not being fair on yourself. That's out of balance. It's not appropriate. It's not harmonious. Okay, so it's saying, you know, is that what self-love and self-respect looks like? And if not, we perhaps need to have some more boundaries around that, some more rules, some more discipline even. And with the connection to Mars, this is really just saying this is part of the redefining of the self, the process that we're going through with this extended Mars transit for the second half of 2020. So taking responsibility for how I connect, how I love, and how I show love to myself is a really important part of this. This feeds into Mars, and Mars is how we kind of behave in a sense. It's how we take our feelings and act upon them. All right, so this is where we can be hasty. It's where we can be a bit rash, particularly when Mars is in Aries, because this is fast energy. So this can be, I'm just going to let my emotions, the current place that I'm at in my emotional world, I'm going to let that dictate how I act. All right, that's not taking ownership of things. That's not taking responsibility, and that's not being part of a holistic, whole, grounded, secure, embodied self that we want to be in Capricorn. Capricorn's all about mastery. We're being asked to master ourselves with this energy. Okay, what does mastery of yourself look like? What does mastery of how your emotional conditioning, how is that affecting your behavior and what you put out there and make happen in the world? What are you making happen in the world? You know, 2020 has given everybody a crisis. There is no one on the planet that is untouched by this crisis. What is the approach that you're taking? How are you responding and reacting? And where's the difference between the two to the situation that we find ourselves in? Is that in alignment with your values of who you are as a person or who you want to be going forward? Is the way that you're reacting? And if not, find out. Now is your time. Do the work. Why do I react this way? Is that how I want to continue, you know, to be and to show up? It's a really, really, really potent full moon. There's just so much in here. It's so juicy. We do a huge amount of self-work. Yeah, so just some pointers there on what might be showing up for us. It really is about taking responsibility and ownership. So what we have then building into, as we move into Thursday, the 3rd, quite a lot of aspects going on here, so bear with me. We have the moon is going to then move forward through Pisces and create a beautiful sextile to Saturn. So these are the beginning aspects after that full moon. The full moon is going to highlight to us, you know, what am I doing here? Where have I been influenced? How have I been influenced? And how do I take ownership of that and make the change? And then as we build through the days that come after that, it's kind of like, okay, what am I going to do with that energy? This is facilitated really, really beautifully by quite a rare aspect that we have on Thursday. If I just put this all together, we have, and I'm short of one opposition aspect, so I'll add 2 squares together, which is what an opposition is anyway, just in place of that. So, okay, beautiful, beautiful aspect to connect with on Thursday. So this is what's known as a mystic rectangle, this particular aspect pattern. What we have is we have the moon meeting up with Neptune here, moving on a little way into Pisces. So still very much in the territory of the full moon, whichever house that's taking place in your chart. Okay, she's still very, very present there. Beautiful trine down to Venus in Cancer. So an abundance of very, very feminine energy, very receptive energy. Sextiling over to Mercury. So the work that we've done with Mercury earlier in the week, where we've tried to pick apart the detail, get to, you know, where is the detail of how transformation needs to look? What are the steps in that process? It's connecting us to that, all right, through this sextile. Mercury is then creating a trine aspect to Saturn, All right, so we've got this earth energy here. Again, it's very feminine. Water and earth signs, all of them, that's all feminine energy. So this is very, very creative energy. So this is saying the full moon has shown you what you need. Now let's get on with creating it. All right, how is the creation going to take place? Trine from Mercury, that reality check that perhaps we needed, bringing us just back down to earth a little bit, how that's going to take part in the transformation of the structure, all right? This process that's going on within Capricorn. And then the sextile over from Saturn back to the moon. So this is called a mystic rectangle. Within the mystic rectangle, there has to be these two oppositions, all right? So we have the opposition from Mercury and the moon. So that's very much, what am I feeling and what am I thinking? Balancing those two aspects of the self out, okay? Bringing the head and the heart back into connection with each other and saying, there has to be, we're trying to come to this yin yang in the middle that I have on my board, trying to come to the center point, that sweet spot in the middle where these two energies equal out. And then on the other side, we have the Saturn and the Venus. So this is taking responsibility, making something solid and real, okay? And where there has to be rules and limitations, because we need those. We need rules, we need limitations. We can't just do whatever the hell we want in life. And then Venus, this is my pleasure, this is my desire, this is my heart, this is my creativity. So we can see where these two oppositions are pushing us to make, make a balance, to create some kind of harmonious inclusion point in the middle. But it's really, really beautifully kind of the tension of that process, if we just engage with it a little bit, is released almost like a magic. You know, this is why it's given the name the mystic rectangle, and it couldn't be more perfect than when we're dealing with this mystical sign of Pisces. The mystic rectangle, it gives us this magical opportunity to just release some of the tension inherent within those two oppositions. And even if it's just a case of having the intention to find the balance, that might be all it takes. It's just putting in some effort, taking some level of responsibility for this process, and the universe will just flood into that. You would just, basically, you're creating a channel for this incredible energy to move through. It's really, really exciting energy. Off the back of a Pisces full moon, it's gorgeous. Love it. Okay, I think I've made my point there. So yeah, this is where we can turn these challenges into the greater good. Okay, what are we going to do with this? We can't just sit in victimhood and say everything about what's wrong with where we are, what's unfair about it, what's broken about it, saying, yeah, okay, get the message. Let's be a force for good. You know, let's take this challenge and make something good come from it. That's where the world's efforts need to be focused right now, in my opinion. So Friday the 4th then, let's clear some of this away. That Venus-Saturn opposition is still kind of present. As we move through into Friday, the moon is actually going to, excuse me a second, I'm just going to have a big cough, so I'm going to pause. Apologies, got it. Yeah, as we move into Friday then, the moon is meeting up with Chiron. So I kind of like to imagine the moon as she's moving around her cycle throughout the month. It's kind of like a relay process. Essentially, she's receiving information at the full moon in Pisces, and then kind of like passing that on where we've engaged with her at that time. she's then passing it on to the planet that she meets next. So when she moves into Aries, she's meeting up with Chiron. And so this is really informing that part of us that feels abandoned. You know, it's that part of us that feels unworthy and unlovable. It's this core wound that we carry around. But it's also, you know, where we have this incredible skill through our own personal kind of flavor of pain. It's this innate understanding of that pain that we can give back to the community, that we can give back to the collective and help other people to understand and come to terms with and to heal. So it's where we're wounded, but also where we're a healer as well. So all of this wonderful information and this process that we're going through as we lead into Friday kind of gets delivered to Chiron via the moon. So this really is, you know, the integration phase of the moon's journey. It's the process that we go through of, you know, as she starts to wane, as she starts to shrink down again, as she moves towards the new moon, it's integrating the process that she's been through. It's saying, actually, this wound, how about this? Here, let me impart something new into this story, essentially. And that's really going to help with our healing work. It's really integrating all the magical potential, the self-healing potential that we have from those earlier astrological aspects in the week. And it's also an opportunity for release, you know. It's saying some of this pain isn't relevant any longer. You know, it's disappeared because I'm not subscribed, I'm not aligned with that anymore. You know, I've taken a little bit of responsibility and I've validated, you know, where it is that I need to take responsibility. And just in doing that itself is massively, massively healing, because it's empowering. When we take responsibility for something, we empower ourselves to be able to heal it. We're literally, you know, taking ownership of something. And when we own something, I mean, you know, how many catchphrases there are around, like, I'm owning it and like a boss, you know, all of these things are Saturn Capricorn kind of energies. They're interpretations that just kind of come through the collective of an expression of Saturn and Capricorn energy. So it's like, you know, be the boss, you know, own this stuff. That's very, very empowering kind of energy. And yeah, and that in itself is healing. It's boosting our confidence. It's saying, actually, I'm not a victim to this stuff. I can do something about it, which is hugely healing. As we move into the weekend, then what we have going on is a connection with the moon's going to continue the journey through Aries, which means that the moon's going to meet up with Mars. Now, Mars energy in the world is very, very, very much on the surface at this point in time. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of the need to act, to express this, you know, intolerance. Okay, Mars doesn't tolerate. It wants to. It's very fast. It's very hot-headed. So it's saying, you know, I want to do something. And it's quite often fire energy. So we are seeing fires, and we're seeing fires being used as a weapon. It's anger, and it's the expression of anger because it can't be contained any longer. And it's being directed at the crisis, the problem. It's being directed at these issues that are being exposed. What are the issues within our current structure that are being highlighted and purged up to the surface so that we can transform them? So what we're doing with Mars is we're taking our juice, our petrol, like if we're the car, Mars is the petrol, okay? And what a lot of people unfortunately are doing, because of the connection to Saturn, Saturn is like the handbrake, you know, the handbrake's on in our car. and we're revving the hell out of the engine, trying to make it go somewhere, and it's not going anywhere because the handbrake's on. And this is just making it more and more angry. You know, the tires are spinning and there's smoke coming off and there's a hell of a noise and a smell, and it's just a mess. What we need to understand is that how are we directing our passion, our energy? You know, if we're directing it at something, you know, that essentially is a big handbrake, is it going to get us anywhere? All right. Saturn is also about the long game. It's also about, you know, it's about taking our time and understanding that we need to pace ourselves. Okay. We're going to need a little bit of patience to see the results of our actions. As we move into the weekend, Mars is going to get to the 28th degree of Aries, and this is the degree that on September the 11th that Mars will go retrograde, which is even more of this being held back energy. All right, Mars wants to go forward, and when the planet's retrograding, it's having to go over old ground. All right, it doesn't want to. That's essentially backwards. That's the opposite of what Mars wants. So between its arrival at this 28th degree and September the 11th and the days around that, we're going to feel even more frustration. We're going to feel like we're being held back even more and more and more. Wherever this is in your chart, look for Aries and Capricorn in your chart and see which areas of life are being affected. So we can anticipate that these tensions are going to build again a little way over the weekend. Not quite so much as last weekend, I don't think, but it's pulling us into this next real flash moment in the astrology, which is the Mars stationing retrograde. So try and take the longer view and try and take responsibility and look at, you know, how am I using my desire to move forward? How am I using my energy? Am I just burning it off, spinning my tires right now on something that's kind of, you know, almost pointless, fruitless? Would it be better if I just take my foot off the gas, deal with those feelings of restriction and limitation, and put that increase of energy, Mars energy, that anger that it creates, use that for something better, but something for the longer term? This is the thing. It's not about making something happen now. If you're thinking of trying to make something happen now, it's really unlikely to happen with a Mars retrograde and in this aspect to Saturn. Patience, you know, take the long road. The other thing that we have then is with the square from Mars to Venus. I mean, this is very feisty energy. We've got the masculine and feminine here in a provocative aspect to each other. This can actually be quite, let's say, enlivening, energizing connections between men and women. It can actually be quite sexy. This is quite sexy energy. These two planets kind of like, there's a lot of attraction. You know, it's kind of like that when you see kids exploring the way they relate to people of the opposite gender, you know, young kids, they'll often fight with them first. It'd be, you know, the girl who picks on the boy because she actually secretly likes him, or vice versa. It's that kind of energy. It's like that playfulness. But the connection here from Venus and Mars is quite sexy. It's quite stimulating. So that's a nice side of it for sure. But again, it's saying, is my use of energy in alignment with my core values? That's what Venus is all about. So, you know, as a person, my Venus, my love nature, what I'm here to create, how I make connections with people, how I bring peace and beauty and love and harmony into the world. Am I using my fuel at this time for that? You know, are these two, and I suspect, you know, with the square here, it's going to activate, it's going to demonstrate where that's not the case. And also, you know, these issues of self-worth. Am I acting like someone who loves themselves? You know, is that how I'm showing up? Is that how I'm behaving? So with the moon crossing Mars over the weekend, again, these are the things that are going to be activated. And it's, you know, it's a long-term process. All this work we're doing with Mars is right through till at the end of December this year. So it's not just for now, but it's all these little moments that add up to the bigger picture. So the last word I wanted to give was compulsion. You know, Venus is our desire nature and pleasure and our need for those things. Mars is desire in a different way. It's what I want to make happen. You know, it's what I want, and it wants to go out and get what I want, and it wants it now. So between the two, and with a backdrop of a Piscean Neptunian full moon, we may be pulled into where we have compulsive behaviors. And these are these layers of the onion. You know, these are our conditioned ways of showing up in life. And I think it's a really, really great time for us to take ownership of those, to identify, am I doing this thing because I'm being compelled to do it? There's almost like an addictive quality to showing up in life in this way. It's very, very familiar. I've done it lots of times. There's a neural pathway that's being created between this part of my brain, which is the Mercury and Virgo stuff. You know, it's like the software program that we're running. You know, and how I'm showing up in life as me, Aries. And it's saying, you know, are you done with this? Do you want liberating? That connection from the full moon to Uranus is saying, is that really who you are? Are you really these compulsive ways that you show up in life? And if you're not, now is the time to liberate yourself from them. All right, is to cut those ties, to peel that layer of skin off and say, no, I want to come back to the truth of who I am when I'm not behaving like this, when I'm not doing these things. You know, Venus is indulging in comfort eating, in shopping, in connecting with people in a way that isn't healthy, or, you know, with people who aren't healthy for us, and maintaining connections that aren't healthy even. And so it's saying, you know, Mars is essentially, it's a blade. We can cut, we can use Mars at this time to help us cut that connection if we need to. So it's a clarifying process, learning who I am by learning who I'm not, and by being shown, you know, what I'm not, or who I'm done with being, or the role that I'm tired of playing. And the key question I'm going to leave you with this week is the way I use my Mars energy, my petrol, is this in alignment with my core values? That's the key aspect that's coming up here. So pay attention to the full moon, your interactions with life, your interactions with other people. See what comes into your life between now and then, and what that's telling you about these behaviors, and who have we become. Hope that's helpful. If it has, then please give me a like or a love. Leave me a comment, show me what's showing up in your life. I really enjoy the interaction, and I love it when people can share their experiences, because that can also add into the richness that these experiences have for other people. So take care, and I'll see you again next Monday. Lots of love. Bye for now.